A 28-year-old man is ruining my 18-year-old son's life, and I'm determined to fight back and free him from his influence. Hello, and thank you in advance for your creativity and time. I'm living in hell right now and need ideas. My son just turned 18 and is disabled. He needs and takes multiple medications and needs support at school. He does well in some settings and is on track to graduate and pursue trade school with support, and we're so proud of him. He's extremely impressionable, a little socially awkward, and desperate for friends. For years we've struggled because he gives his possessions away, gets in bad situations, someone offering to sell him rocks at a park, him thinking they are collectible polished gemstones. So he asks to see them and then freaks out when he realizes they're drugs and is easily bullied. He will do anything to be liked, which breaks my heart, and we're working on it in therapy with trusted adults, etc. The grown man. This guy is 28 years old. Let's call him Kelson. He's frequently homeless, often sleeping in a tent in parks, or he'll get a voucher from our city to stay in a motel. He has 2 pit bulls, not spayed or neutered, that he will leave in the tent or motel room when he works at a fast food job. I actually have compassion for him and his animals, if he had nothing to do with my son. It started with him asking my son to watch his dogs in the park while he worked. My son is so thrilled to have a friend and be helping, and he does love animals, so he will spend 8+ hours a day or night alone in a park watching these dogs. He would ask if he took dog food, toys, and blankets from our house for Kelson's dogs. He does it whether we say yes or no. Months ago we would say yes, because I appreciate that my son wants to help these dogs. Starting a few months ago when my son turned 18, Kelson told him he didn't have to stay with us and could stay with him. For weeks our son was sleeping in the tent with the dogs or rough in the park. Kelson gives him beer and weed. Our son will watch the dogs for entire shifts while he works. Kelson tells him he will help him get a tent and vouchers too. The police are sympathetic, especially because my son has disabilities and also some medical issues, but he is 18. School is supportive, but he's almost at graduation, and again he's 18. We had not ever pursued medical conservatorship or anything like that, because before now lots of things were going right, and we don't take that lightly, removing civil liberties from another young adult. In the past week, Kelson got another room at the motel. He messaged my son to come stay with him, and he did. My son sat in the room and watched his dogs while he worked, and I imagine they smoked and hung out when Kelson was not working. My son would respond to text messages from us, but asserted he is an adult and can go where he wants. He missed a week of medication, school, part of his part-time job, and another important appointment. Being Kelson's friend is more important than all of these things, and he feels good helping his friend and says Kelson is like a brother to me. He's the best brother I've ever had. Kelson's own family has kicked him out. They are nearby. No idea who watches the dogs when my son is not available. Kelson doesn't drive, and earlier this week my son gave Kelson his bike because he needs it more than me. Our son came home yesterday and had a complete psychiatric crisis because he's been unmedicated and probably also high drinking for so many days. His medical issues are exacerbated. He was banging his head on the concrete floor, and when we called emergency services, he spit at the police, so they put a spit hood on him and restrained him. It was horrific, and he was begging for help. We're not sure when he will be stable enough to come home and may need a medical procedure. He was coherent today, crying, apologizing, but still 100% certain Kelson is his friend. I also feel terrible because I know that at age 18 it's a good thing for my son to be not telling us everything, having his own friends in life, etc. I look forward to that day. He does have other friends who are closer to his age, and their hanging out is more appropriate, but these other kids have busier lives and more responsibilities. They aren't available 24/7. Kelson is, and my son feels so good when his phone pings, and it's his friend needing him. How can I make this man's life miserable, or at least make it too uncomfortable or risky to keep hanging out with my son? Nothing to harm or stress the dogs, please. It's not their fault, and my son would never forgive me. Some of OOP's comments. OOP responded to all of them on May 9th, 2024, 4 days later. Commenter, sounds like you might need to pursue medical conservatorship, which I know you don't want to do, but it sounds like you definitely have grounds, and it's the lesser of two evils at this point. I don't see things ending up well without intervention. OOP, thank you for this, and others who prompt me to reconsider conservatorship. I called a lawyer on Monday. I had already done research and collected that info, but had a lot of hope that once sheltered work started up, and he had less free time, it might not be necessary. Commenter, pay someone to be your son's friend. That's more of a caretaker. Honestly, this guy sounds at the very least like a scammer. Sometimes the only way people get deep in one scam is a second scam. It's sad, but there's literally a bot on ARL scams for recovery scams. Basically, people promise to recover your loss for some fee. It's not great, but if you could afford someone to offer better friendship and then point out that his old friend is lame, it'll be like positive peer pressure. Maybe help the person could help them join appropriate opportunities for new friendship, then phase out. This is another great idea, and I appreciated the comments below it here in the thread. I have reached out to some young adults, older than him, that might serve as mentors or fitness coaches, hang out with him, work out, play basketball, build positive connections with people who don't wish him ill. Thank you for this. I have a few possibilities here in our area. Commenter, if it was my son, there's nothing I wouldn't do to ensure his safety and well-being. My advice would be to just make this man's life miserable. Contact his work and make complaints against him. Tell them he's selling weed or is abusive to customers. If he has a room, report him for dealing drugs and threats of violence. If he stays in the park, phone the police and claim his dogs are attacking people in the park, all anonymously, of course. Maybe nip down to the park late at night and set off a shitload of fireworks near to his tent. Do this over and over again. Make it your life's mission to ruin him. He'll move on when it all gets too much. My son is autistic too, and him being taken advantage of is a great worry for me. I hope it all works out for you. Thank you for this. I did contact his employer because my son isn't the only in the neighborhood Kelson is giving alcohol to. I also contacted management at his motel where he occasionally stays to let them know this person was letting a vulnerable teen stay there and miss school and meds, and that it was surely against their policy. Kelson was not happy. I contacted his work in the motel. I felt really empowered by so many of the comments here to engage around this and make his life more difficult. Get son a dog, yes, and great insight to others who mentioned maybe getting my son a dog. He actually has a medical alert service dog and other pet dogs and cat and fish, so animals are truly a special interest of his. Heartbreakingly, he will leave the service dog with us because the dog is safe and we love them, but Kelson's dogs need him. But yes, we lean on the gifts he has with animals to build other areas of his life. Talk to the police again. I just spoke to the local police again tonight. Sometimes they lean heavily on he's 18, he's an adult, but some of them, when they get to know him a bit, realize he's vulnerable and are more willing to help. Keeping him busy, yes, son has an interview tomorrow at an animal adoption center. This is the type of setting that would keep him busy, help him feel like he's doing something important, and give him better adults to be around. Commenter, get rid of the dogs. Go on Facebook and post how they are being abused, and an intervention must take place. Get rid of the tent. Is he camping illegally? Call the cops. Get rid of Kelson. He's not good for anyone right now, not even himself. A major intervention is 100% necessary for all parties involved, for the police, for you, and for your son. There is so much to lose with inaction. I did part of this evening. Son got home from the hospital last night, back on med, stable, goes to his special interest class at school, does great, going for a bike ride, low, and behold, he's back out with Kelson and the dogs. It's after 10 p.m., so the park is closed. Kelson is pitching the tent. I called the non-emergency line to let the police know a homeless man with 2 pit bulls was sleeping in that park near the playground. Police went and moved him and sent son back to us. I will keep doing this. I might also fly our homes near the park to let them know there's a homeless man with 2 pit bulls who provides alcohol and weed to teens in the park near their home to help make it less comfortable for him to be there. Thank you for this advice. Commenter, you could see if Kelson would accept cash and a bus ticket to leave town. It would be the least messy way to disentangle him from your son, or if you can round up a group of scary people in a van, man, a different kind of ride out. I appreciate and applaud the autonomy you've given your son, but it's time for his own sake. Thank you for this. I did go find Kelson after seeing this advice and offer him cash to leave my son alone and stop taking his calls. He refused and promptly told son that I had offered. He also told my son I'm too attached to him. Block the number on son's phone. Thank you for these. Yes, we've blocked his number in the past and given son an old flip phone when smartphones were too much to manage. Help why? But Kelson doesn't even always have a phone. They video chat on Instagram. They also can borrow anyone's phone, log into Insta, and communicate. Go with him to every hangout. I love this advice to crash every hangout. I started doing that tonight. Kelson was so mad, he told me I'm harassing him. He finally walked off and told my son not to follow him. Son is mad at me and pairing that Kelson says I'm too attached. Fine with me. I can do this every day. Great advice. Update post a few months ago. I came here asking for tips to help get a man named Kelson out of my son's life. I'm super grateful for all of the ideas and many kind words. As of today, and for the last 3 months, my son is happy and healthy. We found a transitional living house for him with 5 other young men and 2 house managers and a dog. He's learning to be an adult, learning to cook, clean, and get a job. It includes therapy, gym, everyday yoga, skateboarding, truly a dream come true. The house is about 40 minutes away from where Kelson lives, and my son feels he has friends, is purposeful, and feels adult, and is learning and busy. They will also do job training. Before this happened, I took as much of your advice as was possible. I contacted the manager at Kelson workplace and the motel he occasionally stays at. I told them Kelson was allowing a disabled teenager to stay with him and giving him and other teens alcohol. Manager is a local small business owner and took my information seriously. I also went to the motel and pointed out the sign that said all guests must have ID. My son does not. I told the manager I hoped he was abiding by rules or I'd contact the corporate. I also started calling the non-emergency PD line when he was camped after park closing time and leaving his dogs during the day. PD would move him along. Someone had the great advice of being his best friend and showing up all the time, so I did. Kelson wants to see my son. Hey, here I am too. I'm at the park. I'm at your work. I'm near the motel. I even prepared flyers to let others in the park neighborhood with a playground for small children know about the tent camping and unsupervised, unneutered pit bulls. Kelson got increasingly upset. He said I was stalking him and he was going to call the police. I said politely, please do. I'd love to tell the police more about what you're doing with my son and other vulnerable young people. I told him you want to be in my son's life. I'm in your life, up to you. I really felt bold after all of your advice and encouragement. I was willing to keep going for the long haul. In the meantime, we found a lawyer and I started tapping into resources to find my son some kind of job training because he really wants to help and feel grown up. For a few weeks, he was working at a drugstore through a program through a local agency that was huge for him, stocking and cleaning and helping people. It also kept him busy for about a month and kind of removed Kelson slightly. Kelson either got sick of seeing me or afraid of losing his job. The location of the motel he had been staying at occasionally stopped letting him. So he had to start using another location much farther away, farther to walk to work and harder to deal with. I think he realized my son wasn't worth the trouble I was causing and just stopped contacting him. Thank you so much for all of your ideas. I was so focused on trying to fix it from my son's end. As his mom, I had no idea how to actually deal with you all were fantastic. Huge thanks from the mom of a happy, healthy, busy, and purposeful young adult son. Some comments. Commenter, glad things in your situation are going in a positive direction, but wondering why you have to mention unneutered pit bulls in such a negative context. I'm 100% about spay and neutering all animals right now because this country is in a crisis with the homeless pet population. But I feel like your statement wasn't mentioned because of the same reason. OOP, absolutely, thank you for naming that. I'm also worried about the animals. One reason I struggled at first with what to do is if my son weren't a factor, I would feel drawn to helping Q and his animals, or at least pointing him to resources for that. I have colleagues who work for organizations who help those without homes to stay with their pets, often their family. Since I wrote the first post, one of these dogs has had puppies. I also tried to help my son realize that he wasn't responsible for the dogs, and it was a hard life for all of them until it became clear how in danger my son was. I guess I mention it as another example of how the adult in the situation was not being responsible and how the untended dogs were not safe for themselves or other unfixed animals who might come into the park. For me, the state of the animals is also sad, and one reason my son was so compelled to help, which is a negative. I feel for them and never wanted to harm or scare them. Traditional Plan 7423 for anybody in Houston, Texas that may see this. I work for a nonprofit, Sear Jobs. We offer training and lure to youth, young adults, and veterans financial literacy assistance for everybody. Our goal is long-term financial stability through training and job placement and financial education. We are completely funded by federal, state, city, and private donors. All classes, certifications, and lure are completely at no cost to you, the member. Please look us up. Please donate if you find it something that you support and help us to continue our mission. Surge Jobs for Progress in Houston, Texas. Find us at surgejobs.org and on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and any other platform I missed. We have community events that you can participate in and help us continue to serve anybody who wishes for a brighter future ETA. Sorry if it may sound like taking attention from OOP, but our services are helping many in this situation, and we will do anything it takes to see our members succeed. I may just be admin and accounting, but I wholeheartedly believe in our organization and mission. OOP, thank you. Amazing. Yes, an org like yours is helping us immensely, and I'm so grateful others can help my son, and I can be his mom. Thank you for your time and work. Now to the next story. Story 2. My dad wants me to apologize to his girlfriend's children for calling out their racist comments about my race. Bear with me. I'll try my very best to keep this as short as possible. My parents split when I was 23 and my sister was 20. They were such a poor match, and I'm surprised they lasted so long, and both of us breathed a bit of a sigh of relief when they split. Everyone was immediately happier, and since then both of our parents have found new partners. I've always had a good relationship with my dad, albeit a bit of a strained one. My dad is a fair bit less politically correct than I am, and I'm hardly PC at all, trust me. He calls things that are stupid or that he doesn't like gay. He uses the word to describe gay people, thinks Hillary Clinton would be a bad president because she'd nuke everyone on her period, and laments that he can't use the N-word in public. He's the epitome of out-of-touch late 50s lily white guy, is what I'm saying. I love my dad, and while these things bother me, there's literally no changing him, so I have to just bear it when I'm hanging out with him. And an important note is that while my dad says some sexist, homophobic, he never does so in public. At the very least, he knows when to keep his opinions to himself. Recently, my dad's been seeing this woman, let's call her Helen. Helen has 2 kids, as well, 29 male and 27 female. I don't really know Helen very well. I met her earlier this year at my dad's place, but only very briefly as I was dropping off a few things with my dad. My sister's never met her before, and neither of us has met her kids before. My dad really likes this woman, so he wants all of us, both sets of kids, to get to know each other and the parents, so we can all be a blended family. Despite my dad's political incorrectness, he can be adorable sometimes. So dad invited us all out to dinner. My sister's known to be a bit bristly with strangers, so I told her to be on her best behavior because I want our dad to be happy, and I didn't want to offend Helen or her kids. So we sit down and all start trying to get to know each other. My dad chose a Mexican restaurant to take us out to because it's our whole family's favorite type of restaurant. My mom is Mexican, and growing up, we had the most bomb-ass authentic Mexican food all the time. Since my mom and dad split, my dad has been trying to fill the hole my mom's great cooking left in his belly, so to speak, and is a taqueria junkie. Also important to note, me and my sister, despite being half Mexican, have really white skin. We have obviously Mexican features, or at least I think they're obviously Mexican, but everyone always assumes we are of white European descent because of the color of our skin. So we sit down with Helen and her kids, and immediately Helen's kids, start complaining. These are grown-ass adults complaining that half of the menu is in Spanish. Next to each thing on the menu was the Spanish name and the English name, and all the descriptions were in English, so it wasn't like an English speaker couldn't read it. I am near fluent in Spanish, and my sister speaks passively, and we're both in school to become English second language teachers, but we tried to settle the hair on the backs of our necks and ignore them. We actually managed to have a pleasant convo with them otherwise until the waiter comes over to get our drink orders. Helen's son snapped at the waiter like a dog to get his attention and take his order first, and her daughter spoke in a highly condescending voice very slowly, like this man working at a restaurant that caters to big fat white people couldn't understand damn English. Helen was normal, thank God, but when the waiter blessed his jolly soul, he was so kind despite being treated like an idiot by those two. Len's son remarked that he didn't expect the service to be very good. I don't even know if he could understand us. My dad has been to this place before, so he said, no, the service here is great, you're going to love this food. I recommend. I can't remember what exactly he recommended, trying to smooth things over. And then the son says, not like I could understand him either with that god-awful accent. These people need to learn English if they want to come to America, probably illegal or some. Me and my sister are generally nice, kind people, but no one has ever accused us of being patient or suffering fools silently. So because we're petty, we just gave each other a look and started speaking only in Spanish to one another for the rest of the night. I felt bad because Helen looked mortified, but it felt so good to be so petty. For the next hour or so through dinner, we of course switched to English to talk to Helen or her kids, but with each other and my dad, who can understand it but not speak it. We spoke the most rapid, fluent Spanish we could muster, and at every opportunity my sister would try to mentioned that we were Mexicans and had grown up in a Hispanic household with our mom and her extended family. Since then, my dad's been texting and calling us, mostly me, because I'm usually the ringleader of these sorts of things, begging for us to apologize to Helen's kids for embarrassing them. I'm sure my dad didn't know they were going to be so racist towards Mexicans, or else I'm sure he wouldn't have invited them to go out for Mexican food, but I know he doesn't even think what they said was that racist. He said that they could have been worse, and there was no need for you to humiliate them and Helen like that. I agree, Helen was lovely. I should have taken her feelings into account, and I have no problem calling or meeting her to apologize for acting so petty and childish, but damn it, I do not want to apologize to racists for pointing out and not taking their racism sitting down. Is that so wrong? What should I do? Am I just being petty about this too? I don't want to make my dad unhappy, but I know he's not a good judge of what is and isn't racism, and I don't feel like I should apologize for slapping a couple of racist adult brats down. TLDR, Dad's new girlfriend's kids were racist against Mexicans, didn't know sister and I are half Mexican sister, and I spoke nothing but Spanish to each other for the night to embarrass them. Dad now wants me to apologize to them for embarrassing them. What do you do? Top comments. Brown is not freed, haha, nice, and don't apologize, deleted. He said that they could have been worse. Yeah, well, so could you. They're lucky you went with the indirect reminder that they have no idea who might be listening to or offended by their bigotry, rather than calling them out for everyone in the restaurant to hear. Tell Dad and Helen that you realize her children's ignorance doesn't reflect on her, but they should feel embarrassed over what they did, and you think it's best to avoid future family dinners until they understand where they went wrong and apologize to you. Deleted apologize in Spanish update. So I thought I'd come back to update y'all. My sister and I talked about it with our mom, who has always been much calmer than us. She laughed at us speaking nothing but Spanish and said she wished she'd been there to see Helen's kids' faces. She did tell us to just apologize, though, because she knows how our dad can hold grudges over time. Tiny things like this. We didn't really want to do that, though. So I contacted Helen and asked if she and I could meet up for coffee and talk about everything that happened. She was super apologetic when we met for coffee and said a lot of her kids' funny ideas come from their bio dad, who is a patriotic Republican. The way she kind of sugar-coated everything about it makes me think maybe she doesn't necessarily think what they did was wrong in general, just that she was sorry my sister and I happened to be part Mexican and that what they did offended us. Anyway, it was just me and Helen at a Starbucks. My sister wasn't there. She's grown incredibly apathetic to the incident in a very short amount of time. That's just the way she is. And I said I understand everyone's entitled to their opinion, that my dad has some opinions I don't agree with at all too, but that it was rude of them to assume we'd be okay being subjected to their racist remarks and was embarrassing to be seen with racists. Helen was pretty flustered at the term racists, but I didn't back down anyway. She was at least reasonable and apologized again about what happened, and I apologized that we embarrassed her at. And besides some slightly irreversibly ruffled feathers, I think I've at least smoothed things over with her. My dad is another story. He is stubbornly not talking to me until I apologize to his girlfriend's kids. I made my stance clear that I wouldn't, and if he wanted to act like racism against his kids was okay, then I wouldn't be hanging around him anymore, or God forbid bringing my future mixed kids and his future grandkids around. My sister just sent him a text that said have fun with the racist. She's not good at subtlety anyway. That's where things are right now. Not a super good ending, but not necessarily a bad ending either. TLDR, Helen apologized for her racist kids without really acknowledging their racism, Dad being a stubborn fool. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.